And Jeff Nelson, some of you knew Jim Nelson, his dad, preacher, and his son. We're just glad to have you all here. We've been in a series and talking about Revelation. And we're going to be looking at, in just a moment, the section that deals with the opening of the seals, is that if you have a scroll rolled up and start unrolling it. We had looked in chapter 1 of Jesus among the churches. And just think about it. Jesus is here. He knows our thoughts. Good, indifferent, need a little work wherever it is, that he's always with us, even to the end of the age. And then we looked at the 7 churches, and some are doing great, and some needs work, and some needs a lot of work. All churches are somewhere in there. We looked at the throne scene. God's in control. His angels, the heavenly choir. We looked at the idea of the introduction to the 7 seals, that there is a scroll. That is, God's history is already in his mind. I mean, it's not like there's a piece of parchment up in heaven. He said, well, one of you angels, look up in that cubbyhole. We got to figure this out. He's doing that for our benefit. And Christians are under persecution. And, their thought is, how long, oh Lord, is this going to work out? And so this morning is going to show there's going to be persecution. But there's going to be victory as well. That's where this morning's lesson goes, in the opening of the 7 seals. And so on the left hand, last week we talked about there's a lamb standing. And a voice cried out in heaven when here's a scroll of 7 seals. And who's worthy? He said there was nobody. Nobody's worthy to open it. Not in heaven, not on earth, not in the Hadean realm. I don't care if it's Ezekiel, Enoch. Nobody was worthy except the Lamb. Which is interesting because John the Baptist said of Jesus, behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. And so in harmony with Bob Wielander's devotional, that here's the atonement. It makes us at one with God through Jesus Christ. So I didn't know how to, when he opens the scroll and he says, I saw, I thought, well, probably he's not looking at the scroll. So I just visualized it kind of like it's this huge holographic display. That's what that colored rainbow thing is going out there. And John said in Revelation 6 and verse 1, when I saw when the Lamb broke one of the 7 seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures that is before the throne, saying with a voice of thunder, come! And what John is going to show us is what the believers have been wrestling with. And we think about, sometimes young people and teenagers, this is a crazy world. Old people, it is crazy, but it's always been crazy. It's just we get to see one little snippet of it. And John says, let me tell you what you are going to face, believers. In Revelation 1 and in verse 1, he starts out, the things which must shortly take place. People say, whoa, there it is. Book of Revelation, everything's going to happen in the next 15 minutes. He said, no, there will be some of the things, you churches, you need to straighten up. That's what's going to happen to you. Then in verse 19, he said, and I want to show you what will take place after these things. Some people say it's all contained in AD 70, the fall of Jerusalem, and that's it. What now? Who knows what's now? We're just kind of singing in the rain. And no, it was going to be some things shortly, some things a little bit after. Revelation 20 and verse 2. And he said, and they're going to be a millennium, 1,000 years. Well, that's not 15 minutes plus 2. And then Revelation 21:11 and following. What will take place in eternity? The great white throne, the judgment, new heavens, new earth, streets of gold, all such as that. It didn't happen in the first 30 minutes. And so, since not everything takes place shortly, but some things will, we're going to see, God says, all right, we've got the Lamb that takes away the sin of the world. Now we're going to open, we'd say, the book. And said, all right, here's how that goes. The first seal shows Christ wins. I don't know about you. Sometimes people don't like spoilers. If I'm watching a football game and it was already played, I want to know who wins. If it's the Seattle Seahawks and you lose, I don't even watch it. I want to watch games where we win. Oh man, we got beaten to shreds. Now, true fans, Jeff Dillinger may watch it. Paul Hawthorne's not going to watch it. And so I like it, but I don't want to spend my time hoping and pulling. Okay, oh man, I got tackled again behind the line of scrimmage. And so he's showing in this first seal, regardless of the problems that follows, I want to tell you what happens at the end, that Christ wins. So Revelation 6 and in verse 2, behold, a white horse, and he who sat on it had a bow and a crown, and was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. What we see is this, that here's a white horse, and here's somebody on it, and unlike in Revelation 1, now Christ is pictured with a bow rather than a sword. And the horse, in Proverbs chapter 21:31, it said, and the horse was made for battle. That's what you use if you're going to plow a field. Maybe you use a mule or an ox or something like that. If you're into battle, forget the ox. And so Jesus is on a horse and a bow, which is interesting, but it was an Old Testament weapon in Psalm chapter 7 and in verse 12, that you have bent the bow. You bend it when you have knocked an arrow and you've pulled it to full draw. And of course, Christ on a white horse in Revelation 19 verse 11 talks about his armies in heaven dressed in white linen. The idea of purity. Christ is armed, he's ready for battle, and he is pure. And so as we think about our own lives, Lord, I want to stand before you. I want to be reconciled. And as we were singing the song and had the Lord's Supper, I thought, Paul, that's you. That I want every area of my life to be right in God's sight. And so as we start, I get to know the end. Christ wins. Okay, now we can go to the rest of the football game. So I want to, if we win, I am excited about that. And various commentators cite that. Albert Barnes, Homer Haley, Jim McGuigan, Hendrickson. A number one, it's not like, well, Paul, here's your view. A number one said, that's real. And the Bible says, he went forth conquering and to conquer. And then the second seal in 6, 3, and 4. When he broke the second seal, and I saw a red horse, and he went out, and to him was granted to take peace from the earth, and that men should slay one another, and a great sword was given to him. Now we're talking about war. Christians, what's going to happen? War. War, I mean, what about a kingdom of peace? Well, historians say in the world that war has been nearly continuous since recorded time. They're always fighting some battle somewhere. And I thought, well, how many is that? Rome alone fought in its history 300 wars. The U.S., just since 1776, not counting Indian battles, 120 conflicts and everything, Vietnam and Korea and First and Second World War and Gulf War and Afghanistan and Spanish Mexico and all kinds of wars. We live in a world of war. And currently, Glenda asked me that we were walking around the block the other day, and Glenda said, wait a minute, we're at war in Iran, and the president cannot declare war. Well, that's true. But they can declare a temporary armed conflict, and it's supposed to last 90 days. Is Trump the first one that does it? Oh, no, all kinds of presidents do it and have done it. And Congress says, oh, yeah, whatever. And so I'm not the boss of all that. I just look at that and say, it's crazy. It's always been crazy. And John is saying, I'm telling you, Christians, you're going to go through crazy stuff, and don't let it blow you away. Jesus wins. As then the third seal is open, Revelation 6 and then in verse 5, the Lamb opened the third seal, and I saw, and before me was a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And well, what's the idea there? 6:6, he said, and I heard a voice in the center of the four living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a day's wage. You want to work all day long, you get some seeds about this much. If you want wheat, and 3 quarts of barley. So you want the good stuff, you work all day long, and what do you get? You're going to get a little bit of food. There's nothing for the luxuries. There's nothing for paying rent or medical bills. The black horse, McQuiggan and others say, here's famine and economic hardship. Haley says, a Christian who refused to compromise by joining a pagan guild would be hard-pressed to earn a living. And so if you want to eat the cheap food, well, you can get enough food for 3 days. But if you want a little better, all that you can afford is just what you eat. Now think about what happens even in our day, unless you're socially appropriate. Oh man, the school board's up in arms, corporate America's up in arms, and I'm just not very socially appropriate. And so it's going to have to be what it is. But a lot of people get hammered because why? Society now declares you ought to say this way and talk that way. And if you don't, there is problems. And so there's going to be hardship for people serving God. The 4th seal, death and Hades, in Revelation 6, 7, and 8. When the Lamb opened the 4th seal, I heard a voice for the 4th living creature say, come. And I looked, and there was before me a pale horse. New International Version says a ashen horse. Interestingly, that word pale in the Greek is chloros. Like you think of plants, that they need that particular green to absorb the sunlight and make the food, and such as that chlorophyll. Well, that's the word. So I thought, I'm going to make this horse kind of sickly green, and somebody said, they're kind of weaving around, not doing very good. Its rider is named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. So what happens? Well, you're going through war, you're going through all this conflict, going through famine and starvation, people die. He said, that's going to happen. There's death, and pictorially, then Hades, the realm of the unseen, follows right after that. 6 and in verse 8. And they were given power over 1/4 of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and wild beast. Well, that happened. Christians would get caught up in some of these battles, and certainly in persecution, sometimes crucified and displayed for entertainment by being torn to shreds by beasts in the Roman arena. But Paul tells Timothy in 2 Timothy 3:12, all who live godly will be persecuted. He said, Christians, just put on your armor. You're going to get through this. And I want you to know Christ wins. The 5th seal is opened up, and it's souls beneath the altar. And verse 9 said, when the Lamb broke the 5th seal, I saw underneath the altar the souls, not the bodies, the souls of them who had been slain because of the word of God and the testimony they maintained. So picture like, here's a altar of sacrifice, and I just have kind of white individuals in white robes beneath that. The idea is Christian martyrs who were slain in religious persecution. And their blood, so speakingly, was poured out at the base of the altar. And that's what they did with the animal blood. When the temple was standing after the animal sacrifice, the priest would take the blood, and one of them finally, as they got near the altar, would splash it at the corner. And so I just decorated that, and so then we'll have the blood thrown on there. He said, that's what happened to the blood of Christians, so speakingly, sacrificed on the altar of God. Revelation 6:10, and they called out with a loud voice, how long, sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants of earth and avenge our blood. So the picture is we've died. Well, God, now what? They're still in power, and that's not right. Verse 11, and each of them was given a white robe. That's interesting. Here's the soul, here's the spirit, and you get a white robe. But the idea is you're purified. You've won the battle. And they were told to wait a little longer until the number of their fellow servants and brothers who were to be killed as they had been was completed. He said there's others going to lose their lives, but the time's coming. God's going to take care of that. You just make sure you stay on that right track. Emperor Domitian is said to have ordered persecution AD 81 through 96. So Christians had it among the Jews, but this was an empire-wide edict. Get the Christians. Wow. And then as we think about that in Revelation 6 and verse 12, and when I look, he broke the sixth seal. And there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth and as made of hair, and the whole moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to earth. Now, when you think about that, does that literally happen? Can stars of the sky fall onto the earth? Well, that would be difficult. Stars are 1,000,000 times bigger than our Earth. If they literally fell to Earth, and all life here would have been vaporized. Hal Lindsey, a premillennialist, says, well, that represents a Russian nuclear attack. Well, maybe not. Genesis 37, 9 through 11. Here's Joseph of the Old Testament referring to his parents as sun, moon, and stars. Here's high, noble figures. They're going to fall. Society is going to be shaken. There's going to be upheaval. In Revelation 6:14, as the sixth seal continues, the sky was split apart like a scroll, and when it was rolled up, and every mountain and island were moved out of their place. What I want to emphasize, not some, every mountain. I mean, Mount Rainier, Mount Baker, Mount St. Helens, the Cascade Range, the Olympic Range, the Rocky Mountain, Appalachian Mountains, Kathmandu, all mountains, they're someplace else. And every island, I don't care what it is, Orcas Island, Hawaii Island, Philippine Island, they're all ripped out of their place. So that's why I kind of got a graphic here. Here's a mountain here that's torn out of the earth. Well, the idea is obviously not that the ground is somehow going to be all plucked up like a cornfield and thrown somewhere else. Believers are going to see massive social and governmental upheaval. Everything is going to go crazy. But that's the language that was used, like for Edom, in Isaiah 34 and verse 4. All the stars of the heavens will be dissolved, and the sky will be rolled up like a scroll. It just showing, man, when you fall, bud, that's the end of your nation. And so, since the earth has literally 2 million islands, there's 100 mountain ranges on earth, it's not literal, but figurative of massive upheaval. And likewise, in Luke chapter 3 and in verse 5, he said, here's John the Baptist, and he's got a job. Every mountain will be brought low, every valley. We need to change people. We need to get them on the right path. That is God's path. And so 6:15, we're nearly at the end. And the question is, will all that upheaval, all that war and death and persecution, who's able to stand? How can you get through that? How do you stand in times of storm and upheaval? How do you stand in times of personal loss and testing? The fall of Jerusalem, the fall of Rome, the end of the world. Who is able to stand? And the answer is, every faithful believer is going to stand. That's who stands, because you're holding the hand of God. And then, here's the seventh seal. And when he broke the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for half an hour. Hush. Why? Habakkuk 2 and verse 20, the Lord is in his holy temple, let all the earth be silent before him. All the angels quit singing. All the voices quit speaking. All the trumpets quit blowing. No arguing about his judgments. Get ready for the next step. Now, my point here is for each of us. Each of us has somewhere we need to grow, somewhere, some aspect we need to improve, something we could do for God better. Are you ready to take that next step? We're going to offer an invitation here. We're going to be singing this song in just a moment. Will you come? If you've not obeyed the gospel, or you have obeyed but you've strayed, you say, I want to come back. I really need to get on the right track, and I want to be part of the congregation, or I need to be baptized into Christ. We've got opportunity. We've got water. Have you got the will? The Spirit and the bride say, come. Let us know your desires. As Ben come up, lead us in the song. Let's all be standing for this invitation song.
So will you come?